the Daily Express, Christian Cowgie. Great to have you with us this Saturday. Great company. We're going to start with the Eye show now. Labour drops NHS pledge to cut A&E waiting times to 4 hours.
Yeah, it doesn't sound great, does it, at all? Because 4 hours already seems like a very long wait, I think, to a lot of people. And there's a little bit of sleight of hand going on here, where if you actually look at the Labour manifesto, they didn't have this in it, perhaps acknowledging that it's not achievable. This target hasn't been met since 2015. And yeah, a lot of people will look at that and think that is a bit of an admission of defeat very early on. But of course, the problem with NHS targets is that they can have unintended consequences on other things. And one of the things we know about A&E waiting times is that a lot of people are going to A&E who actually shouldn't be going to A&E because they can't get GP appointments. And it's suggested within this story that there's warnings that prioritising one aspect of care risks undermining others. You do have this target of 92% of patients being treated for routine surgery within 18 weeks. That sounds good, that sounds realistic. But of course, the question is then, in achieving that, are they going to not be achieving other things? It's always the case with NHS targets. They sound good, but you can't have everything, so you've got to prioritise one thing. And I mean, it doesn't make for a good headline at this point, but it also wouldn't make for a good headline later when it's Labour failed to meet target that they promised.
Yeah,
well, and of course, I think it's the third sort of watering down, as well as the economic growth one and the renewables. So I don't really understand this Starmer's big relaunch. It's not quite provided them with the
they had that big
balance.
setting, didn't they, at Pinewood, and that 42-page booklet.
Yes.
Because it's not a manifesto, but it felt like some kind of pre-election gamble.
It's, well, I think it should have happened before the election. That's the reality. The fact that it took them 5 months after the election to sort of spell out what their goals are is astonishing. So, you know, as we were just saying before we came on air, we've now had the five... whatever, the five pledges, the 6 milestones, the economic foundations, the economic pillars, the 6 first steps. I mean, it's just, you know, I can't keep up with it. And goodness knows what ordinary punters are thinking.
But ordinary punters will be interested in the story in the Mail today about that pledge from Labour to build 1.5 million homes.
Yes, well, talking of pledges, they have actually kept this one, but... it seems like there's a real tension between Labour in Westminster and Labour at local government level. We've had Yvonne Gagan, the leader of West Lancashire Borough Council, saying that the targets are impossible and unrealistic, and saying that they're on a collision course with the government. So they're her sort of objection. The Labour's increased West Lancashire's targets from 166 homes a year, which is just pathetically low, to 605, which in my mind still sounds quite low. But she's saying that, you know, they're 99% green belt, even though actually one of Labour's, what I would describe as a sort of positive moves, one of Rayner's positive moves is saying, you know, get building on the green belt, guys. You know, stop and when you're building on brownfield, do it more densely. But yeah, I just think actually I'd really like to see some sort of top-down butt kicking on this, because clearly councils are failing, and the idea that you'd start kicking off about having to build 605 homes in a year is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
OK, we're going to have a gear change now. That's shown now. This is in The Guardian. It's page 4, and the Archbishop of Canterbury has apologised. Now, he was accused of making light-hearted comments, wasn't he? He was following the allegations of safeguarding and failures within the Church of England.
I mean, just staggering. I think everything about this is extraordinary. So this is obviously, we've had the speech, we've had the outrage, and now we're having the apology. But unfortunately, I think because this is now getting to smaller columns in the papers, I don't think the story does justice to how offensive the speech was, because he does say, he says, if you pity anyone, pity my poor diary secretary, which is an extraordinary thing to say when you're talking about victims of serious abuse, which of course is why he had to resign. But also what's not mentioned is this comment about a head was required to roll, and then he made some reference to an 18th century predecessor. Oh, hopefully, you know, not literally. And then he said in this case, there was only one head that rolls well enough. I just think the idea that, oh, they had to take my head because they needed one, no personal accountability being accepted whatsoever. It's all just a joke and a jape to him, which is staggering given why he actually had to resign.
Yeah, it's just astonishing, isn't it, that we've had he's had to resign. Then he makes a speech about his resignation, and then he's had to apologise for the speech about his resignation. I mean, it's just a complete farce, isn't it?
It's lucky he didn't manage to fit in another joke in his apology, for which he would then have to apologise again.
Yeah, at the heart of this, there are victims, and that's really important to
And
know.
it's not his diary secretary who's the victims at all.
Christian, let's talk reform.
Yes, the Times has a sort of weekend long read talking about can reform win the next election. Nigel Farage at a Spectator Awards do this week joked that, and he won Best Newcomer, but joked or warned, I should say, that there'll be a lot more reform newcomers, hundreds, after the next election. And it's something clearly that the Tories and Labour are very, very scared about. There's a stat here that research, I think, by the Labour Party has suggested that 1 in 5 voters are now three-way floaters between the Tories, Labour and Reform. And indeed, there's a sign, whilst Reform only won five seats at the election, obviously that was massively distorted by our electoral system. And we've got the Welsh elections next year, where Reform are on course to do very, very well, possibly going into second in terms of votes and seats. And then, of course, you've got the Scottish elections the year after, where again there's been a sort of a quieter rise. Maybe not, they're not at the sort of 20 points that they're in the national polls, but still doing surprisingly well for Scotland. And I think it's something that the main parties are both, rightly very worried about.
Okay, Shona, I want for you to take viewers through a story that you picked from the Daily Telegraph about some village bells being chimed and why there's a bit of a row.
Yeah, I love the way this has been reported. Someone's had good fun with a village newcomer's complaint over the decision to allow the local church's bells to chime overnight has fallen on deaf ears. His argument has also failed to strike a chord with the local people. He's put this online. I think it was a little bit mischievous. He said he was surprised to find that the bell was tolling on the hour every hour. And he says, in the age of phones and watches, I mean, we've had watches for a while, to be fair. Why is this still necessary? People on Facebook have not responded very well, saying, I worry that you may hear cows mooing or the freight trains running.
I have fouled in my job, and I've not given us enough time to talk about this final story about a baby rhino that's been recovering from injury, and some grannies have knitted this colourful blanket to keep it warm.
And the grannies in question are from a care home just down the road from my childhood place in North Yorkshire in Saltburn. So shout out to them.
Claim to fame. We'll be back after the break. Bye-bye.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered.